Ian.
Malcolm?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And where in the movie Jurassic Park did he say this line? And what was it in response to? Triple extra credit?
They were in the meeting room with John Hammond.
Yes.
He was talking about, or John was talking about how they were bringing back dinosaurs from the mosquito DNA.
Right.
And then he was like, oh wow, life finds a way.
Ah, but what was it in response to? Yeah.
The all-female dinosaurs were able to produce.
Exactly. And what was said right before he made the statement in regards to lysine production? Come on, triple extra credit. That if they withhold a certain amino acid, lysine, that they will prevent males and females from reproducing because there will only be what? Females, right? No males. And he said, life's going to find a way. And was he right? At least he was right in Jurassic Park. Yeah, he was absolutely right in Jurassic Park. Okay, so the compelling force of nature. Everybody agree that nature is pretty compelling? Anybody watch the Weather Channel where you see all these new storms and tornado blocks in Oklahoma? Now Oklahoma gets done with tornadoes, but fracking produced earthquakes. Isn't that wonderful? You thought you only had to deal with tornadoes, now you get fracking earthquakes. Compelling force of nature. Okay, so we know that nature is resilient because the Earth has been around for what, 4.5 billion years, give or take a few 100 million? Homo sapiens, at least modern ones, have been on the Earth for about 200,000, probably add another 50,000 onto that if you believe Neanderthals are part of modern Homo sapiens, which most anthropologists believe they are. You go to the Museum of Man in Balboa Park, you'll see a human skeleton right next to a Neanderthal, and their cranial size is identical. Their elongation of their cranium is identical. The only thing that's different that you'll notice when you go to the Museum of Man is that the Neanderthal's arms are a wee bit longer, probably, I imagine, 2 to 3 inches. Hands are a little bit bigger, but that has nothing to do with the cranial capacity. So to give an example of how nature finds a way, I have something that, if you guess, you get quadruple extra credit. We've already been to triple, right? Now we're at quadruple.
That's all right, you can go as high as you want since most of the students get 0 credit.
And the points don't matter.
And the points don't matter. But if it were up to me, you'd all get A's right now, and then you'd just take the rest of the semester off and go to the Bahamas. Okay, can everybody see this? This is I'll give you a clue. Let's see if we can guess it first. It's a marine invertebrate fossil from the Devonian Period, which is 350 to 400 million years old. What do you think it could be? This used to be in the open ocean, which was a very primitive ocean back then, in the Silurian Devonian Period. So what's your guess? Look at the impression. What do you think it could be?
The first wheel.
It's not an eyeball. Now think of it as something that settled to the bottom of the ocean floor and died flat. That was either round or oblong before it died. What's your guess?
Nautilus?
No, if it was a nautilus, you'd see ribs or ventricles. What do you think this could be? Now this, remember, it's an invertebrate. I'll give you another clue. Translucent, and what do you got?
Jellyfish.
A jellyfish, right. Jellyfish has been on the Earth for 700 million years. This one is 350 to 400. Has not changed for 700 million years. So what does that tell you in regards to the biological diversity of the Earth? It's the simple things that tend to survive, right? Viruses, bacteria, organisms that have a tremendous capacity to adapt. Where are humans in that equation?
Other end of the scale.
Opposite end of the scale. We're not simple at all. How are we adapting to heat and cold?
Terrible.
Pretty bad. 98.6. How do we do it when our core temperature hits like 106? We die. We're terrible at adapting. But if you look at most of the species that have made it through the 5 major extinction events, they survive because of their simple yet ingenious complexity, right? They're really not complex, but they're ingenious in regards to their design. So we're the newcomers to the block. 250,000 years really doesn't give us much bragging rights when you think about 4.5 billion years. We're talking about 5 major extinction events, which we're going to look at, that are separated by at least 50 to 100 million years. So Earth finds a way, but not always according to our timeline. Okay, 30 years after Chernobyl. We just celebrated the anniversary of Chernobyl. This is, somebody help me pronounce this name, but this is the city that's next to Chernobyl. It used to be one of the flagships for the Soviet Union. I think it's called Pripyat?
Pripyat.
Pripyat, there it is right there, Pripyat. I need the phonetics for that. There's probably no scientist on Earth that ever believed that Pripyat would regenerate as fast as it has. But there's a couple positives about Pripyat. One, it was left alone. The day that Chernobyl went south and it spewed, I don't know how many metric tons of crap in the air, and it was drifted all over Europe. This was, I think Pripyat is within, what, about 5 miles from Chernobyl? It's pretty close. But the amount of radiation was tremendous. I forgot the volume, but it was tremendous that laid over the city as a carpet. But the day that Chernobyl went, Pripyat was evacuated, which is one of the bigger cities at that time in the Soviet Empire. And this is it today. And you can see how the concrete has decomposed through expansion and contraction, because Pripyat does get cold in winter. You can see how the foliage has taken over, and there literally is every species of animal now that has come back to that area. Now, I'm not suggesting that radioactivity still doesn't exist within the food chain, or the animals and the wolves that have returned aren't radioactive. They are, because they eat, a lot of the animals eat large concentrations of plant material which still are radioactive. But today, if you and I visit the Soviet Union, we could go to Pripyat on a tour. They actually take people on a tour with a Geiger counter to make sure you don't get overexposed. Because apparently the Soviet Union wasn't too good at cleaning up some of the tools they used for the reactor, and they kind of left them around. So every once in a while you get like a hot spot apparently. You kind of walk around the hot spot. So anyway, but look at this in 30 years. I mean, the glass is gone in most of the buildings. We have, there were no trees in this area 30 years ago.
Dan?
Yeah.
You'll be interested to know that yesterday in this room we had a seminar on this very topic.
Really?
Yes, on the consequences of the radioactivity on the animal species.
Well, what's amazing is that the degree of radioactivity, active material that actually carpeted that area wiped out every living thing 30 years ago. Every tree died, every animal died, every blade of grass died. And to see it today is a sense of a miracle. But my caveat to those pictures is that humans have left it alone, and nature has found its way in 30 years. So in other words, nature's a great engine, but not in the hands of humans. There's the moral, right? It's an irony, right? Because Chernobyl was in the hands of humans. Look what happened. We left it alone, and nature's done okay. So there's been 5 major extinction events that have occurred in Earth's history. The first one was back in the Devonian period, about 450 million years ago. This one went on for a number of million years, at least as the scientists believe. Scientists believe that it was not only associated with glaciation and major climatic changes, but also with volcanism and other types of caustic materials that were released on the landmass. And of course, back in that period, we're not talking about animals on land, right? We're talking about a very primitive sea. Very primitive sea. So the extinction event actually went on for some period of time. So there's a significant reduction of number of primitive animals, but all sea-based. So the brachiopods, the grapholites, etc., were all sea-based at that point. But again, if you look at the geologic history, we're talking about millions of years of an extinction event that went on for the first event. Second event, 350 million years ago, give or take 20 or 30 million. It's not important, right? We're talking about millions as bracts of time. The Devonian Period, which is the same period that jellyfish came out of. This was, you can see the landscape, the way this is depicted. This is more, the extinction was more related to volcanism. There was so much volcanic eruption and spewing of caustic materials in the upper atmosphere. Pretty much everything died. Especially the early life forms that made it onto the Earth. And that went on for, again, millions of years. And then it wiped out all the primitive coral reefs, and it took another 100 million years later for the coral to even reemerge. So we talk about periods of time for nature to find its way, right? We look at Chernobyl 30 years and we think, wow, that was impressive. But when we have a true extinction event, We're not talking about 100 years, 1,000 years. We're talking about millions of years it takes for the Earth to regenerate itself. So bear that in mind. I gave you the positive picture early on about how nature finds a way, but it doesn't always find its way quickly, and it's certainly not according to the human timeline. Remember, we've only been walking the Earth upright for about 200,000 years. Okay, event number 3. This is the Permian period, when amphibians were making their transition out of the sea onto the land. This was a major event. This one basically turned the whole world, including the sea, into a caustic mess. 96% of the species died during these periods of time, which were millions of years. This particular extinction event went on for a long time. 4% survived. It's believed out of the 4%, that's where our lineage came from, because some of the mammals were actually able to go underground and hide in their burrows. At least that's the belief. But there was a small percentage of animals that survived. Again, the time period was millions of years. 200 million years ago, the Triassic Jurassic period. Everybody hears about this because of the famous movie Jurassic Park and Malcolm. This one was also a major extinction event, climatic changes, major eruptions, flooding, etc. But this wasn't the actual event that extinguished the dinosaur, which we all have heard about. The next one is the exciting one, which everybody hears about. It's the famous KT or KY event, I think it's called. KT event, yep, there it is, the KT extinction. The mass asteroid that fell to Earth in the form of a meteor right off the Yucatan Peninsula during the Cretaceous period 150 million years ago. You don't get the idea of the size of the hole that it left. It's about 112 miles across. Think of that. And then you start multiplying out the type of mass it would take for a meteor that large that hits the Earth to develop a crater that big. Anybody been to Sunset Crater in Oregon? Hiked it? It's kind of a thing. They give you a little certificate if you survive, because every step you go up, you slide back too because of the pumice. So it takes you a long time to get up. When you get up, you think, God, this is a huge crater. And you think in terms of something like this. So the amount of megatons of this energy this released was enough to liquefy the atmosphere. Not only liquefy the atmosphere, but liquefy a large portion of the ocean. And of course, with that liquefaction, and just the seismic waves themselves that rippled across the Earth, nothing survived, or hardly anything survived, except for jellyfish and a few other species. This was a big one. This was the end of the age of the dinosaurs in the last
Mammals
period.
existed beforehand.
Yes, they did exist.
And very small mammals survived.
Supposedly, that's the story. I would hate to be a mammal, wouldn't you, after this event? Wouldn't be too pleasant. Okay, so here's the 6th extinction event. This is modern day. Guess what? We get the chance to extinguish the Earth ourselves. We don't have to leave it to meteors or climatic change that happens slowly over millions of years. This is the current extinction event that's going on. Take a look at what the typical numbers are. The background rate of normal extinction is one species per every, about 1 to 5 species a year. So let's say there's a natural attrition rate, because we all know that all of us on the Earth, all the organisms are not going to survive, so there's a certain percentage that are going to die out naturally. But now multiply it times 1,000, and then 10,000. And then you talk about a huge acceleration of species extinction. There's even counters online. If anybody's online, you can go online and see a species extinction calculator that tells you how many are going extinct as we talk. So it's a phenomenal number of species. Here's the threshold of the previous extinction events that occurred on the last 5 before us. About a 75 percentile or 80 percentile is about the number that were extinguished during the previous major extinction events. So if you look at the number of species that are threatened with extinction, you can see that we're getting there. You know, if you look at the numbers, 50% on certain types of gastropods and shellfish. The numbers keep on climbing, and I have some other charts that will show you how close we're getting. But the big 5 mass extinctions, all we have to do is get to here to match the others. And of course, I don't think the human species will survive even when we get to the 75 percentile. I think we'll be long gone. Yeah.
With the mammoth that you have up there, do you think the evidence supports the idea that the mammoth in North America was hunted to extinction when humans came across from Siberia?
I don't think so. I think there were a couple species of mammoth, but we actually had a version of mammoth that was out in the Anza Desert. And it went extinct just because of loss of habitat, because of climatic changes. But yeah, I would say the Earth, apart from humans, has its own extinction calendar. And so mammoths simply couldn't survive the climatic changes in which they were adapted to.
There were dozens of large animal species that went extinct as man was descending down.
True, that's true. But mammoths are pretty resilient. I mean, the question is, if you're a primitive human being and you have a spear and if you have a clan of people going after a mammoth and you're attempting to drive them over a cliff, I mean, it takes a lot to bring down a mammoth. You know, it's not like you say to a mammoth, okay, now I'm going to shoot you with one arrow and you're going to die by God. You know, it took a fairly robust event to kill a mammoth.
Are you speaking from first-hand experience?
Yeah, I was reincarnated. I used to be a cave dweller in my previous life. That's exactly it. In fact, my wife would still say I'm a cave dweller. Okay, so here is the reason for the acceleration. So our planet, if you look at the amount of resources that humans are expending, 30% more resources than Earth can replenish each year. So we're on this accelerated clock where population growth is causing more resource expansion, which is using up more of the resources faster than the Earth can possibly regenerate. And my favorite statement here is that by 2030 we'll need 2 planets to sustain the life that we have. And 2030 isn't even close to where our maximum population is going to be before the die-off. Anybody remember the number that I threw out to you last time? What's going to happen by 2050? How many people are going to be on the Earth? How many billion? Anybody remember?
10.
I would say 12.
Yeah, about 9.6 billion, but that doesn't account for lots of other things. So use a 10 billion number. And of course, that means we're nowhere close to the resources that we need to survive as a human species. Okay, loss of natural habitats. Remember, here's that extinction level number here. This is the projections here of where we're headed. And if you look at the numbers, look how fast we're accelerating the extinction of the critical habitat that's necessary to support complex life on Earth. Look at the original loss by 1950. Look how it accelerated again by 50 to 1990. And then 2050, which is where we're getting to the 10 billion population number. This is a calculation here on the tropical, subtropical environments that are going to be near that unsupportive extinction level event. So we're doing a good job. We don't need a meteor, right? We don't need volcanoes.
We are the meteor.
We are the meteor, right.
But the asteroids and the volcanoes will continue on their own anyway.
We can only hope that the asteroid will be faster than the human.
On the other hand, we better do our dirty work first before they get the chance.
Well, you better live like hell before the asteroid comes, or before humans destroy what's left, right? So everybody don't worry about your cholesterol, go out and get your extra frappuccino today, because it's not going to matter, right? Okay, so what's driving world energy consumption?
Besides, it's not quite on schedule. The natural species extinction shouldn't happen for another 35 million years.
At least. But you know how humans are, we're so impatient. It's got to happen in our lifetime or not. You know what I mean? Right? Immediate gratification.
We want to see the action.
I want to see the meteorite come. You know, I want to see the sun go dark and it hit. Wouldn't that be exciting?
But maybe
For a second.
stick around afterwards.
Exciting for a very brief time.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to feel the pain anyway, but it'd be exciting. You know, think of the breeze in your face as the sun, you know, as the atmosphere vaporizes before you. Okay, so look at this inverse bell-shaped curve, which is really not a bell-shaped curve, right? World energy consumption, 2000, and so we're way beyond this. Look at the curve as far as the amount of resources we're using, which are non-replenishable, mostly fossil fuels. Boom. I mean, we're at a point of no return unless we get rid of half the population of the world, probably.
But does solar show up on there at all?
No, this is just the large percentage of the Earth that depends on fossil fuels.
Okay.
The entire engine of the planet is based upon the use of fossil fuels. It doesn't matter if you're in South Africa and you have coal available to you, you're going to use coal because it's there. If you're in a third world country and you have a natural resource like timber available to you, solar is expensive, and so is wind power. So you're going to use what's around and available to you. And the notion is that these fossil fuels have been in surplus supply since we've been on Earth. So why not use them? They're never going to run out, right?
Right.
Okay, so here's a very distressing picture. Look at the amount of soil degradation that's caused by deforestation, overgrazing. Let's say you're in a third world country. Are you going to care about crop rotation when your family's starving? No. You're going to use every nutrient out of that soil you can before you move on to the next plot. And then if you happen to have a stand of trees next to you that happens to have put down nice carbon material over the years underneath its canopy, it happens to be a great fertilizer source for your next year's crops, and your land, it happens to be overutilized, what are you going to do? What? Chop, 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 right? Which is what's happening. I mean, and the question is that apart from species extinction, from loss of habitat, what does that mean to climatic events, global climatic events, when we lose our forests, or we lose the tropics, or we lose the foliage and the tundra in the Amazon? I mean, we're talking about machinery that produces oxygen, cleans our air, balances nitrogens, and all sorts of other things. I mean, this is on a disaster course for where the Earth's going to be. Everybody feel happy and uplifted now? This is one of those positive talks you're going to go away from feeling really good about, right? So our ecological footprint, that's kind of out of focus a little bit, but you can get the gist, is that look at the acceleration again. This is our ecological footprint by country in regards to how much resources we're using per capita. And if you look at the leaders, we're right up there. Here's the United States. Look at our slice right here, huh? But we're kind of competing almost 50-50 with China.
But we got 300 million people and they have 1.5 billion.
Right. So, our claim to fame is that we like to use more than everybody else, right? We certainly don't want anybody else to use less resources than us, do we? That would put us a second tier, right? We want to be the country that rises to the top of self-destruction. Okay, so world capacity. Oh, by the way, the line across here is the worldwide capacity. So when we hit here, we're done. The world is not going to exist for the human or other ecological creatures, other biological creatures.
Well, you showed that we crossed it.
Well, we crossed it before, but I mean, there's the point of extinction. I mean, where we're done as a planet.
Okay.
We're reaching it. So the ecological footprint is basically an ecological model from ecology, and you can see that the supply and demand of nature can only handle so much impact from humans. And you can see that the timber resources we depend on, seafood, etc., energy, that there is a strong correlation between human activity and our footprint that we put on nature and our ability to survive. In the Cretaceous period, which is where most of the foliage occurred early on the Earth, about 75 million years ago when it ended, that's when most of the fossil fuels and the peat, etc., were deposited on the Earth because of mass forests on the Earth before the extinction began. So we are going to basically run out of all fossil fuels by 2080. All gone. Every form of fossil fuel will be used up. So what's our choice? Well, we're going to have some very cold periods, probably, especially if the climatic changes keep on occurring. But on top of that, are we going to have enough nuclear, enough solar? Are we going to have enough wind power? Probably not for the whole world. So we have a big problem. The Earth takes time, but it will regenerate itself, but not according to our timeline. Can you think of modern history to where, since the humans have been readily using fuels since the post-industrialization period, we have used up basically 75 million years of fossil fuels by 2080. So if when was the industrialization era? Do you remember? Was it back in the 50s? What?
19th century?
19th century.
Yeah, so 100 years.
So 100 years. Imagine that, though. Imagine the Earth giving us this gift of fossil fuels, which the Earth didn't intend us to use them for fossil fuels. We just found it as a great way to keep warm, right, in power machinery. Imagine the human species, one species on Earth, using up that degree of resources in such a short period of time after the Earth spent 75 million years to generate it. It's pretty horrendous if you think about it. Of course, humans are not known to be selfless species, are they? We're very self-focused. Okay, so this is a slide from one of the other presentations I did. 9.6 billion, we can argue it might be more like 10 billion or maybe more by 2050. So this is the driver for everything. And if Earth is not producing 34% more food, which is not going to happen through meat, it's going to happen through plants, per year, that we're not going to be able to meet the population requirements by 2050. And we already know that this is not going to happen because the Earth is not going to produce 34% more foods for the people. So the prediction is that the Asian and African continents, that's where there's going to be a big die-off. And it's not going to be a die-off initially just from food, but what? What's the other thing that humans need?
Water.
Water. Water is an essential element, right? Humans don't live beyond 72 hours very well without water. So we can't cool our bodies without it. Our bodies are made up of primarily water. What's our percentage of water in our bodies?
Well, a lot of people think it's more than half, but it's not 90%. A lot of people say that, but it's more than half.
More than half. That's a lot of water. I mean, our bodies are not designed to live without water. So major fighting, territorial, over water rights is going to occur. I mean, if you're in a country of Africa and your neighbor has a dam full of water, what are you going to do when you're out? Are you going to say, good luck, thank you very much for having water for your people, but we'll leave you alone while our people dehydrate, right?
That's actually happening right now in the Middle East. Yemen is out of water, and a lot of what's going on in Syria is
Water-based?
over water.
Well, there you go.
But Mark Twain said 100 years ago,